Hi, this is Tyson Franklin. Before we get on to today's episode with Dave Freeze, which I know you are going to absolutely love, just a reminder, everybody, if you want to see what events I have coming up, please go to my website, tysonfranklin.com, click on the events section, and it shall all be revealed. Also, if you're enjoying the Podiatry Legends podcast, please share it with your podiatry friends and consider leaving a rating and review on whatever podcast platform you happen to be listening to. Okay, let's get on with today's episode. Okay, it is fantastic to have Dave Freeze back. Now, you may recognize that name. Dave was on recently, episode 380, and it was titled Red Team, Blue Team, Purple Team, Future-Proofing Your Podiatry Business. What we're going to talk about today, we're going to take this we're going to go a little bit deeper with this because it's a great subject. And so, Dave, great to have you back again.
It's always awesome to be here. I've been looking forward to it.
So what I wanted to run through today is I want to explain that I went to somebody's podiatry clinic, spent the day with their team. We did a team building and creativity day. Fantastic day. We ran through a whole pile of things. It was just a really fun day. But as part of the creativity and the team building, we applied the red team, blue team, and purple team. So we split the clinic numbers into two, had the blue team go off and try and think of things that the red team, so as we'll just rephrase, the red team is trying to come up with ways to harm the business, and the blue team is trying to come up with defenses. That's just a very quick summary.
Right. Or if we want to state it less diabolically, the red team is trying to think of the vulnerabilities, and the blue team is trying to think of ways to strengthen the strengths and fix or mitigate the weaknesses.
Yeah, that's a nicer way of putting it.
I'm sure you get the diabolical responses. So
yeah, so we've got them to split up into two teams, and they had a lot of fun doing it. And I said to the blue team, just think, you don't know what the red team is going to come up with. There'll be probably some common things that you think that they'll do. So come up with how you would defend that, or what you would do to mitigate it or lessen the chance of it damaging the clinic. And then I said to the red team, now remember, the blue team is going to be trying to come up with defenses. So what else can you come up with? And I was rotating between the two teams. So I had a rough idea what they were both doing. But I must admit, some of the people in the red team, the people who you think were the sweetest, with the biggest smiles, were the most diabolical.
Oh yeah. I find that to be true in the world generally.
But some of the things that came out when we brought the two teams together, and I'd have the red team say, this is what we do to you. And the blue team went, this was our defense towards that. And I go, oh, nice. And it was backwards and forwards. The blue team and the red team, they were battling each other. And then when we brought them into as a purple team, just to discuss the whole thing, there were a number of things that the red team came up with that the blue team went, oh, never thought about that. And also it was something that, especially when it came around to starting rumors and damaging the reputation of individuals or clinics. And they were like, oh, I never thought about that. And so that was something that when they came together and thought, okay, how could we fix this? I think that really opened up everybody's eyes.
So that's a really good example. We, as the operators of professional practice, I operate a professional practice, not a podiatric one, but as operators of professional practices, we like to hope and think that stuff's not going to go on.
Yeah.
But this is a really great exercise for doing just that, making us aware of things that we hadn't thought consciously could happen, but which could be very damaging, and identifying vulnerabilities we hadn't thought about, as well as us thinking about what if the world changes? What if we're vulnerable in a way that we suddenly didn't expect, whether it's triggered by a red team or not? And so it gets people normalizing this process and creating a cycle of going through it again and again and again, which makes them way better in their capability of reacting to changing and volatile times and to threats that do actually arise. They're not caught flat-footed. So this whole thing, in case doctors are listening and wondering like, well, this sounds like a fantastic, fun exercise for team building. It's way more than, it does much, much more.
Yeah,
so carry on.
Yeah, because we started doing the SWOT analysis at the beginning of the day, and this was like taking the SWOT analysis and injecting it with steroids. It was
exactly.
taking
I like that you did that. I do the same thing. I do it in the same order. I do an exercise, a four-step exercise called what's working or what's not, or I do the SWOT because it gets everybody thinking about what those strengths and weaknesses are. So it primes the pump. And you've got strengths and weaknesses, which are internal to the practice, and then the external opportunities and threats, what's outside in the world that you don't necessarily control, but that you need to be aware of. So that really primes the pump for both teams. And then when you bring them together for purple, it's also creating this collaborative environment. So you
Mm.
feel like if you're on the destructive side, you're doing it for a good purpose, as much
Yeah.
fun as you might have
Yeah, one of the things we
diagnosis.
did too with the SWOT analysis, had them do the SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, had them gave them a few minutes to write down a couple of things in each quadrant. And then I said, okay, now what I want you to do is pass your sheet to the person to your left. Read
Mm,
what the other person's got there. Now add to it.
I
Don't write what
love that.
you've already written. Just look what they've written down. Does it prompt any ideas? And then you continue on. And then give them another few minutes, pass it to the person on the left. So all of a sudden you were getting, you'd see what somebody else ran and go, oh, never even thought about that. But then that would spark off something else. So that was like really priming it before we went into the red team, blue team, and then purple
Mhm.
team afterwards. So much fun.
And you're also priming something that I think is super powerful, which is you're priming the creative function. So a lot of podiatry practices or professional practices, they're not creative at all. They build a system, they think they've cracked the code,
Yeah.
the system stays in place forever, the world changes around them, it turns into a pile of like a steaming pile of dung that doesn't work anymore. And practices there then there are the other practices that occasionally somebody has a brilliant idea and they do something and it helps for a while, but what you want to be is the practice that can be creative in functional valuable ways like on demand. And what you were doing with that exercise is training that function into the practice and the recognition that they could be way more creative than they thought they could be all the time in a
Mm.
cycle, both on the offense side and the defense side.
The good part about doing all this, one, it got everybody in the team thinking. I
Mm,
had about 6 or 7 exercises we did throughout the day. It was a simple thing. And that's why we left the red team, blue team, purple team pretty much was the second last activity of the day. The last activity was
mm,
just wrapping it up with what were your biggest ideas and a couple of steps to get it started. But even one of the other things we did was had them, if all of a sudden you had $10,000 and you had to spend it on something that would help grow the business in some way or the team or their environment, where would you spend it, whether it's on decor, marketing, and did the same thing, split them into two teams. And then once they went through it all, they had to present what they had
mm.
come up with to the other team and try and sell it like they're on Shark Tank.
Oh, it's
And
brilliant.
it was really
It's brilliant.
funny because then they had to sell the other team that this idea was great. And they came up with completely different ideas. One was all about taking the team away to a conference and spending the money that way. And the other team was all about bringing things into the clinic, making the whole environment of the clinic better. So it was good. And I think they both sold each other on both ideas.
That's fantastic. I love that for so many reasons. But I think you did something that was quite brilliant. You sequenced that in the right way. Because if you put the red team, blue team exercise too early, you don't get the full advantage of it.
Yeah.
You let them get the full advantage of all this other exploration. And then by making people sell their ideas, because they've now developed a bias for whichever team they're on, you blunt that bias by bringing them together in the purple team, which shows them like, hey, we think this way, then we think this way, then we come together and figure it out. And then you had them selling each other, which is the same process. Like, hey, we both have good ideas. How do we make this work? And that reminds me of something that I think is very powerful. I
Yeah.
often have people do a paradox resolution exercise. Like, for example, I recently wrote down that, and I wear two things here. One says, standing still is falling behind, and the other says semper paratus, which is always prepared. So I was thinking to myself, well, standing still is falling behind because everything changes around you. And if you're not paying attention, you're losing ground. You're not staying where you thought you were. But at the same time, I also wrote down, I need to stand still and be quiet and have quiet time in order to advance, in order to get better ideas, in order to be more creative. So, how do we reconcile those two things that seem like polar opposites.
Mm,
Jocko, you were at a conference with me and with Jocko once, and Jocko has discipline is freedom. Well, which
yeah.
is it? Right. Discipline gives us an enormous amount of freedom. And I love reconciling dichotomy because it makes you play in that area and to realize what's true about both and what are the gradation and nuances in between. And that's what the purple team part does. It makes people realize that the red team wasn't totally right and the blue team wasn't totally right, but they both have great ideas and they've got to play in that area where what do we actually do? How do we prioritize the great ideas? Which ones can we actually implement, which versus which ones are impossible right now? If they're impossible right now, how do we get the resources to do them? If you want both to go away to the conference and to have a barista, like how do you get the resources to do both? And so that is fabulous. This red team, blue team, purple team stimulates a whole bunch of great strengths in a business or a professional practice. And you hit them all in that process you did with them.
Yeah, well, what was interesting when they were talking about, oh, the podiatrist could go away to this particular conference. And I said,
Hmm.
well, that's great. I said, but what do you do with your admin team at the same time? I said, how that's not motivating for them. And they went, oh, yeah. What about if we sent them off to a retreat for the weekend while we were away at the conference? I tell you, the admin team was like, yeah, we're sold.
Yeah. Well,
You've sold us on that. But when you were talking about the standing still, you're falling behind, that's the second part of the Red Queen hypothesis. If you're
yes,
standing
correct.
still, you're
That's
falling
exactly
behind.
right.
Yeah. And then the other part you were talking about
You're
when,
smarter than you look, Tyson.
thank you, Dave.
Yeah, you're much welcome.
I do. I feel people all the time. And the other part, when you were talking about Jocko, and that sort of relates to when you were saying slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
Yeah, slow, smooth, smooth is fast. They seem like they're the polar opposites of one another, but that little special forces of saying kind of condenses it, gets you thinking about it. Oh, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So slow is fast.
Yeah. And he gave the example when they used to deploy out of helicopters, everyone would try and get out as fast as they could, and they would pretty much fall over the top of each other and they get injured getting out. But then they
Yeah.
realized if they just went out very smooth and very slow and very organized, they were doing it slower, but they're all actually getting out faster. And sometimes, even our podiatry clinics, we try and do too much too fast, and we need to stop, assess, and then work out what's the next best thing to do.
Exactly. And that's counterintuitive, but it's the team and the doc in the practice who get used to dealing in that gray area and reconciling these seemingly different, contradictory things. That gives a practice an enormous benefit. It might not be obvious immediately, but think about it. If you as a doc get that, and your team gets that, and you can attack and you can defend and you can come together and decide how it's going to be implemented and how you're going to do it. And if you don't have enough resources, how do you get the resources? If you're good at that, nothing is going to destroy your practice and you're going to future proof it, as we were saying.
Mm.
Whereas other practices that aren't practicing and rehearsing these things, they're in the standing still is falling behind or just plain old falling behind mode.
Yeah, and I think we mentioned in the last episode when I've done podcasts and I've spoken about it before, I'd have my disaster folder where
Yeah.
I'd think of all the things that could possibly go wrong in the practice and have a folder set up and ready. So when something happens, when you're lying on a beach in Bali, you're not getting a phone call or emails going, oh, the power's not working. What should we do? They should automatically go, we know exactly what to do because it's all in the disaster folder.
And there's a magical power now. I'm glad you mentioned that too, because when you did that, you had to go through everything and rely on your ability to think of all of the things that could go wrong, which you and I are fortunately very good at. We can come up with disasters that could happen all the time. We're good at creating these scenarios. But as you build a team, it's good to get the team to come together and say, hey, these other things could go wrong in my section, stuff we weren't even thinking about. But now we have the magical power of AI too, which has gotten so good at things like this. So we
Yeah.
can put in all the disaster planning we've done so far and say to AI, can you make suggestions about other things we might not have thought of that go wrong with this type of practice or any other type of business? And can you make suggestions about ways to mitigate them or plans to deal with them? And so you can produce an even more well thought out and nuanced plan, and you can produce summaries, executive summaries of each section that can be super helpful when you're in Bali and you don't want to be thinking about it. And so one of the things that I was thinking about after our last meeting was how powerful, because you asked me a couple of times, what about somebody that's got a small practice and doesn't have a big team?
Yeah.
And, AI, and we can talk about lots of ways that these red team, blue team, purple teams can be used, and lots of ways that AI can be deployed. I'll give you a quick example. In a practice, I'll go through and say, what are the essential business functions of this practice? And of those, where is there a bottleneck now? Where is there a known problem? Where are there opportunities you're not exploiting? And then we red team, blue team, and purple team that, right? So we're starting from a position, and those are typically flushed out, as you said, with a SWOT analysis or something. But thinking about your business as what are all of these essential business functions? What's our marketing look like? What's our sales look like? What does our finance and bookkeeping look like? What are our KPIs look like? What are our standard operating procedures look like? And then there's medical versions too. What are our practices to prevent surgical infection look like? What if there's a reaction to a medication? There are all of these things, but we can use AI, even when it's just a few of us, to start to help us rank those and prioritize those. Where would we get the biggest bang for the buck? To come up with synthetic responses of patients to particular things. Like if we don't have a bunch of patients there, because AI knows from the billions of reviews of podiatrist practices that are out there what people are thinking and doing and saying when certain things happen. So you can say to it, what might the patient say if X, Y, and Z happen and we responded this way? So there's the magic of the red team, blue team. There's the magic of bringing them together in the purple team. There's the magic of knowing what the key functions in your business or practice are. And then there's the magic of the meta level, strategic level, and tactical level stuff where you could use red team, blue team on all that. And then finally, I've started using AI in all of these to help each of the teams. So I now show each of the teams how to use AI. And it's just magical. It's revved that process up even more. It's like on mega steroids now.
And when you're talking AI, what programs are you particularly using?
Good question. So if I'm doing research, I've got some very specific research, like, but Perplexity would be a good place to start because Perplexity is a research tool.
Okay.
If I'm asking it questions, I'm going to use either Claude or GPT-5, and I'm going to prompt it to try to, in GPT-5 especially, to eliminate some of the hallucination that takes place. In other words, if you ask it to look at all the patient reviews of podiatric practices in your state with your kind of demographics or whatever, you want to tell it, I want you to use only that data and I want you to pay careful attention to it. I want you to fact check it so it doesn't just think that it's supposed to make you feel happy with its responses.
When I do the podcast, and I'll take the transcript, put it into ChatGPT 5, and
Mhm.
it helps do the show notes for me.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
it was pulling out some quotes. And I'm looking at these quotes and I'm going, I don't recall, like I listened to the podcast, I edited the podcast. I don't recall Dave saying that. So then I asked, I go, are these real quotes? Are these ones you've made up? Oh, I made them up.
I like its honesty at
Yeah, it
least.
just went, oh, you want ones specifically from the people? I went, yes. So
Which you should have to ask, but you do have to prompt it that way now, right at the
yeah.
moment. Yeah.
So as I was going through it, I had to realize that, yeah, it was pulling quotes out, but it was quotes, it was just making up based on the content that they thought, oh, this would be a great quote. And lucky I picked up the first time that it did it. And then after that, I
Yeah.
said, no, must be word for word what was said by the guest or by myself. And then since then, never had a problem with it. But yeah, it's little things like that. You've got to be careful. You've got to
Oh, yeah.
check your work.
Yep. No question about it. But Claude and GPT-5 are my go-to. For Claude, what I'm using, it's really best for longer now, like ChatGPT will write things in little chunks. So if you're writing a short SOP for one of your teams, fine, check your work. But Claude, if you're writing a series of chapters for your manual, your disaster manual with executive summaries, it's going to be able to handle a bigger, longer, more robust prompt to keep going. But those are the two I'm using for those kind of thinking, writing tasks and the reasoning tasks. But to your point, all my prompts still to in both of them emphasize like if I'm having one of those two large language models do research, I tell it, I only want you to pick studies that you judge to be valid on these criteria,
Mm.
to fact check yourself. Give me the answer regardless of whether you think it's going to make me happy or not. And that way, like you, my experience is that I'm getting more accurate information from them. And
Yeah.
my experience, I get more accuracy from Claude without like really, I don't have to reprimand it as much as I do ChatGPT.
Yeah. I'm not sure anyone listening to this, if we can still, because previously we couldn't use Claude in Australia. So I don't know if that's still the case. I'll
If
double
you
check that.
can, it's a very powerful tool for writing and for more detailed writing. And it's pretty easy. It's got a gigantic memory back. The GPT-5 does too. So it's pretty easy to prompt it and give it lots of background information and show it documents so that when you ask it questions, it's going to go out and get other information, but rely predominantly on your instructions in these prompts and or the information that you're giving it to consider. It's very good at that.
Yeah. AI has changed so much in a positive way. And that's why I like it when I see people using it the right way. And
Yeah.
then you see other people, they go, write me a blog article. And go, yeah, you can do more than that.
Yeah, I mean, like in this red team, blue team, purple team, everything that you surface that the team surface can be re-examined through that lens too. And so every threat and every opportunity, you can flesh more nuance out in it or surface ideas that you hadn't considered. And then either ways to carry it out if it's an opportunity or ways to mitigate it if it's a threat and how to do it and the procedures you need and the steps to take when. It's great at helping you to figure that out. I like to have humans do it first
Yeah.
and then say what we've considered so far. What else do you see in there that we should be thinking about? Other threats, other opportunities, other steps that we should be taking, ways to improve it, that sort of thing.
And that's the thing. You can go into AI and you can say, hey, we've just done this exercise, red team, blue team. This is what we came up with, red team. This is what we came up with, blue team. We came together. These are some of the other thoughts. What are we missing? And I know straight away because it knows exactly what red team, blue team is all about. It's going to give you a lot more information. And like you said, once you find something else and you put it in there, you can just keep digging deeper on that problem and trying to find solutions so it doesn't actually become a problem.
Yeah, I agree. So a fabulous tool and a major force multiplier to any of the aspects of this red team, blue team, purple team sequencing that we're talking about. Because what we haven't made too explicit yet is all of the red team, blue team, purple team stuff is all to get us to a place where we're starting to do things differently and better and more efficiently or crunching down a timeline. It's not just for the sake of having the fun of doing it. That's fantastic, but it's to come up with ideas. What can we do better? What do we need to change? Of these things that we could change, which are the ones that are in help us to get clarity about what we're doing, which are the things that are most in alignment with that, who should go first, who's best qualified to do this. And so it's not the exercise is in service of protecting ourselves from attack or vulnerability or doing new things better. And the AI could be very good at helping us to get that last mile, which is what are we going to do about this exercise that we did today?
Yeah. And like you said, it's better to have the humans doing it first, put
Yes.
the information in, and then use AI to dig deeper. And even if you were a solo practitioner and you might have one admin stuff, even as a solo practitioner, you can still sit there and go, okay, what are some of the threats? And be the red team, also be the blue team, put that into AI, and then start working with AI.
Yeah, because we get a cognitive bias. The thing is, if we ask AI first, then we tend to think through the lens that the AI gave us.
Mm.
Whereas if we do it first, AI is better at looking at it from multiple perspectives. In fact, I'll sometimes even prompt it to look at it from the perspective of this, from the perspective of a competitor, from the perspective of these various teams within my organization, from perspectives I haven't considered, analyze this thing that we've come up with, either this vulnerability, this good idea, or how we're going to implement it. And so that's why it's really important that the humans go first, because the humans can do things that the AI can't, and vice versa. And the AI is good at looking at enormous amounts of data that we don't have available to us. But we got to do the fundamental, deep strategic thinking first, and then let AI help us to refine it. Or else AI puts us in a little box as to how we think.
Yeah. And that was one of the things when I said one of the threats when they had the red team was to try and damage the reputation of
Mhm.
somebody who's already working in the business. It wasn't necessarily just a business owner, it could be an employee. And So therefore, you could put into chat, this is how we were going to damage someone's reputation. Now, what would you do if your reputation was being challenged to fix your reputation? And AI will come up with a lot of things that you will not even think about.
And you may find you may not have encountered this, but I think if you put into ChatGPT, hey, we were thinking about damaging somebody's reputation this way, it might say, I can't help you with that. But if you say this is an exercise and the end goal is to figure out how we protect ourselves from people trying to do this, it then will help you.
Yeah.
Because it's generally programmed not to try to help you to do nefarious or illegal things. But if you clarify that you're doing it for good, not for evil, it will probably help you then.
Yeah. And even with the reputation, that's why I think it's for everybody. Even if nobody is damaging your reputation, from the time you start working, you should always be trying to build your reputation that
Yeah.
you're an honest person, that people can trust you, you're reliable. You constantly keep working on your reputation. So if it's ever challenged, you've got all this history behind you that is going to probably
Yes.
protect, no matter what somebody says about you, your reputation will protect you.
Yeah, I think it's valuable that way because it gets you focused on how is it that I legitimately and ethically and truthfully build trust and reputation with people. Because to your point, if people have 27 experiences with you, even if it's on online information you're giving them, the last 6 appointments where they came to see you, and they were treated with dignity and respect, if they see a bad review that says you're a dirtball, they're going to go, that's a crazy person because
Yeah.
all of the evidence conflicts with that. So the red team, blue team, purple team exercise is good because it surfaces something that you might never have thought that would happen. What if somebody does attack my reputation? And it gets you focused on doing the right thing. But it also got you focused on this idea that you had never considered that a patient might try to do that, a competitor might try to do that, somebody on your team that you fired might try to do that,
Mm.
somebody that's secretly angry and you don't even know is a problem might try to do that. And when you realize that's out there and that you'd never thought of it before, you can have one of two reactions. You can weep in the fetal position because everything is terrifying, or you could go, okay, I need to be even more focused, to your point, Tyson, on how do I build and reinforce my reputation online, on social media, on the platforms where I communicate with people, in the letters they send out them, how they're billed, how I resolve a patient billing dispute or a patient that's dissatisfied with some aspect of the service they got, whatever it might be, you're now thinking about it and building a much more bulletproof, future-proof practice.
Yeah. And I think all that, those four things that you mentioned, I've had every one of those attacks on me through my career at various times, whether it was a patient, a
Mhm.
competitor, an ex-employee. So these things just happen. I think people have got to be prepared for it. But if you build your reputation up and you're constantly working on it and maintaining it, when these things flare up, you don't crawl in the fetal position and go, my life is over. You just
And
know that, yeah, you almost become bulletproof to it because you've put all the hard yards in beforehand.
And this gets me to one other thing I wanted to make sure we talked about, which is resiliency. So in my model, where I have up at the top, I have meta level force multipliers. These are the mindset things. These are the how do we think about thinking? And one of the top things that leaders that are super successful in any walk of life, in any profession, do is that they are resilient, they are creative, they are aware of their strengths and weaknesses, they're aware of their environment and the circumstances, how they're changing. But resiliency is important. And so this process that we're talking about helps us to strengthen our resiliency because one part of resiliency is being prepared for things that we weren't expecting. But another part of resiliency is mentally rehearsing things that we can reasonably foresee and building within us the stamina to withstand them and thrive in the face of them. And so I like to think of red team, blue team, purple team, all in service of these high level mindsets. And so when I do red team, blue team, purple team with business black ops people, I'm doing okay. How do we do red team, blue team, purple team on the well, red team and blue team on our mindsets? How do we strengthen our mindsets? Where are we
Okay.
weak in our mindsets so we can be attacked? Then I do it at the strategic level. Are we 80/20ing this? Are we focusing on doing the 20% of the things that give us 80% of the results? Like billing. The billing system has to be right. And so one of the things you could do with AI or a red team is say to AI or a red team that examines it, does an audit of this is what are the last 30 denials we got for one reason or another? What do they have in common? What system should we build to make sure that doesn't happen? Because getting paid the most in the shortest period of time and getting paid for cash for people that want cash services, these are all things that we may not be paying the most attention to. So we may not be paying attention to the right stuff. So I have the red team attack things at the strategic level. Where are we weak? Where are there opportunities? I have the blue team say, where are we strong? Or we could shore it up already. And where else might the red team be thinking about attacking us at the strategic level? Do we have good KPIs? Are we measuring the right thing?
Mm,
Do we have regular staff meetings where we review things that went wrong? Do we do a red team, blue team, purple team exercise twice a year? Do we do SWAT? There are all of these things that I have them do at the strategic level, and then at the tactical level, what are the things that we're doing every day? Is there a patient intake form that's ambiguous that people are complaining about? And so red team, blue team, purple team, I run through my framework too, which is a
uh,
cool way to think about it.
tell you, paperwork, I had to get an MRI done on my ankle.
Mm.
And so I see the specialist, writes out the referral. He emails me a copy of the referral and then sends a copy of the referral to the x-ray place.
Hmm.
So then I contact the x-ray place and they said to me, oh, can you email us a copy of the referral? I went, yeah, okay, but shouldn't you already have it? And they went, oh, we do, but we need you to send it to us as well. And go, okay. So I emailed it to them. And then I get a text message the day before the MRI. Oh, can you make sure you bring in a printed copy? I'm going,
Everything you're saying is insane, of course.
yeah. And I went, okay. You know what? I said, I'm not going to take a copy. Bug ears. I'm not going to take a copy in with me and let's see what happens. I turn up and I said, oh, I forgot to bring that copy in. They went, oh, no, it's unnecessary.
Insane.
So they must have old systems in place that they're still doing, and no one's questioned the way that they're
Right.
strategically
And
putting it together. And it was really annoying.
yeah. And so that's the beauty of having this framework of how to use the red team, blue team, purple team idea to work through it based on where there's already a problem, work through it based on these three levels. Now, you're always going to find more things in your practice than you can
Mm,
fix. You don't have the time, the money, the resources. So another amazing skill is figuring out which one of these, if we fix it, might fix all the others. Which
yeah.
one of these gets us the biggest bang for the buck? Which one of these fixes the problem that takes away our attention for most of the time? And that's a separate skill. And that's where I use the purple team a lot. Like, how do we get to implementation ready? Which of these are we going to do? And I always point out to them because they think, oh, there's not a lot of vulnerabilities. Oh, there's only a few strengths. We're good at everything, blah, blah. And then they surface all these vulnerabilities that they start to panic because they could be destroyed 72 ways they never thought about now. But the truth is that there's probably three of those that matter the most. Or there's some, if it's not a vulnerability, there's something that we're doing well or not doing so well, but that we could easily improve. There could be hundreds of those, but there's probably only two or three that really matter. And so I like to use that. And I like to use AI, by the way. I have the humans do the prioritization first and to show their work and explain why. And then we say, this is the solutions we had. These are the ones we picked. This is why. How do you agree with us or disagree with us? Explain your reasoning. And sometimes you get insights there that we just go, wow. And I
Mm,
always do something, Tyson, that a lot of people don't know to do. I say to the AI, what other questions do you need to ask me in order to do this thing I'm asking you to do in the best possible way with the best possible results? And
yeah.
it will ask you questions and it blows you away.
Oh, I'm always surprised when I prompt it that way. Ask me, what should I be asking? And when it tells me, I go, never even thought about that. It's
And yet
constantly
almost
expanding your
always
mind.
it's good.
But the
Yeah.
other part, going back a step, when you said about the mindset level, is that the threats to your mindset. I think
Yeah.
not that the average person in the street is mentally weak,
No, they are.
but yeah, okay. I wasn't going to say
Let's say
that.
it.
But it
Say
is
it.
like, I think because we don't think about our mindset enough and trying to build resilience, when life throws crap at us, it's very easy just to go to pieces. And that's why part of my training, when I have a new graduate come and work with me, and I had this model set up that it's like the CIA training model. I could take them from where they
Mhm.
are, 3 months, I could have them functioning like someone who'd been out for 3 or 5 years, and did it time and time again. But one of the things I would teach them was about the mindset. And I would say to them, you will get a patient complaint. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
At some stage in your career, it might be the first week, first year, 10 years, you will get a patient come back in the clinic and they will complain. Expect it, but this is how you deal with it. I say, you will get a patient go to the registration board and put in a written complaint. You will get a letter from the registration board. Don't go to pieces when it happens. Just expect it's going to happen. And if you've done the right thing and you've documented everything, dotted all your I's, crossed your T's, you're never going to have a problem if you've done everything right. It's when you start cutting corners, not doing your notes, and doing dumb shit. I said, then you could have a problem. And so I would mentally get them prepared for adversity. It's going to happen.
Yes. Yes.
And what had happened, when it did happen, they go, hey, look, I got a complaint.
The
Congratulations.
Yeah, the Stoics do this. They would periodically wear like scratchy, rough, horrible clothing, even if they were rich, and go and sleep in the street. And the question they would ask themselves is this the thing I so feared? Meaning they're pretending and acting like they've lost everything and experiencing the discomfort of what it would be like to live in the street in terrible, itchy clothing. And they go, this is really not as bad. Like I can't terrorize myself over this anymore. And that's what you were doing. You were getting them prepared. So when they saw it, they were like, this, despite my best efforts, this is likely to happen. It's
Mm,
you said it's going to, and they're ready for it. And cultivating resilience and cultivating the ability to get clarity about what you want and cultivating the ability to align what you're doing with that. So many doctors I see, and I'm sure you see this in podiatrists too, just go from one thing to the other. They're just constantly read a book, they change course, they tell their team to do this. They haven't thought out, what do I really want this to look like? What do I
mm.
want this to feel like? How often do I want to be here? How often do I want somebody else to be doing these things so that I could be on vacation in Bali and let them go through the disaster manual? And if that's what I want, who do I have to hire to be able to have that? And what's the training look like that's different? That's getting clarity and then alignment of what you actually do to achieve it. And red team, blue team, and especially with the AI magnifier can really help practices with that.
Yeah. And I don't think when even on a tactical level, I
Mhm.
will say to people, when you buy a piece of equipment that you think is going to change your practice, could be a 3D printer, because that's quite popular these days. If you get a 3D printer and that's how you're now going to make your orthotics, have you thought about what will happen the day it stops working?
Yeah.
Think about
Yeah.
it before you've even bought it. When we
Because
buy
it's
it and we're
gonna.
going to get it, at some point it may stop working. It could be the first week, first year, or a couple of years. It could break. If that is your whole process on getting your orthotics made and how you promote yourself, what's your backup plan if things go pear shaped? Think about it now, because it's going to happen. And when it does happen, you go, oh, we're already prepared for this. You're on the beach in
And that may be
Bali
that
and you're not getting phone calls about the 3D printer.
and the answers may be things like the red team, blue team will flesh this out, and the purple team will bring it all together. It may be answers like we keep our relationship with whoever was producing our rapid turnaround orthotics as a third party, and we just do more of it in-house, and we have a reason to do one or the other. It may be that you have a backup 3D printer. It may be
Yep.
that you pay a little more for rapid response to service it. There are 100 ways that you could solve that problem. Not everyone's going to be right for every practice. One may be stellar for one practice and the worst idea ever for another practice, but that's why this process is so powerful.
And that's why it's important to think about it beforehand. Don't
Mhm.
wait until things happen before you go, oh, now what do we do? Because it all blends on the mindset, the strategic level, and the tactical level. They all fit in together, which is why you got to be
Yeah, the
thinking on
beauty
all
is
three.
when you strengthen the mindset, you make better strategic decisions and things bother you less when they go wrong, which they are going to.
Yeah.
And then strategy, if you're picking the right strategies, it makes you way better at tactical enactment. Like you're using the right strategy, so you're way more likely to do the right thing more often.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? When your emotions are high, intelligence is low.
Yeah. And that's to your point. If you rehearse them so that things that would traumatize another practice are just like, hey, I knew this was going to happen. You have resilience, you have emotional bandwidth, you can think more clearly than somebody that's running around screaming, "Oh, I've got a complaint, I've got a complaint." Ah.
Yeah, and but I go to Muay Thai every morning, 6 a.m., and I mentally prepare myself that every day I could get hurt. Just part of it. But I always think if I'm going to get hurt, I'm not going to hurt my upper body and lower body at the same time. So if I get a lower limb injury, what can I still do upper body so I can still go to the class each day? If it's an upper body injury, what can I still do lower that so I can keep going each day? And there's been times where I've injured a wrist. I already know what I'm going to do when that
Yeah.
injury happens. When this happens, this is what I'm going to do. And we talk about it in the gym all the time, which is why if somebody does have a mild injury, if they don't turn up, we go, "You're weak." We've had this conversation.
By
There's
the way,
always
when we
something
were
you can
doing
do.
it, I just had this conversation with my brother, not about weak-minded fools like you were talking about, um, Rob said to me, the more I think about things, the more I take the time to think, the more I realize most people don't think. And
Mm,
he's exactly correct. And that's why I said, not maliciously, but 90% of people wandering around will, none of what we've talked about here, 90% of practices will never consider any of the things we've talked about. 10% of them might read a book about it or think about it or listen to this podcast. Of that, 10% of them, so just the tiniest number, will ever do anything about it. But they will be so much more powerful and adaptive, and their practice will be so much more of what they want it to be that it'll be like night and day. Just people just don't think and they don't plan and they don't prepare.
mm,
And those that do, and that better yet, do it thoughtfully and strategically and with the idea of building resiliency and clarity and alignment and self-awareness. Like you have this self-awareness. You're talking to a guy that sustained a serious spinal cord injury training where
yeah.
I was paralyzed. So same thing. Like yet when I was paralyzed, by the way, I instructed my own potential rescuers. So I remained calm. So a couple of things went through my mind. I said, "Oh, is my will signed?" Because I know I'm paralyzed and I know that things aren't good. And I was like, "Yep, check. Do I have enough life insurance for Robin and the kids? Check. I'm all good." And then I was like, "Oh my, what if my penis doesn't work?" So that was the third thing down. I mean, it
uh,
was but then people were going to move me, and I said, "Don't move me. I have a serious spinal cord injury."
yeah. And I'm
And
concerned about my penis. That's it was
yeah,
check
man,
number
I didn't
three.
want to
Yeah.
say it right there. I
Yeah.
was keeping that to myself. But when the EMTs arrived, they were like, rarely does the spinal cord injury victim instruct their potential rescuers not to move them. And they just thought that it was hilarious that I had the presence of mind to do it. But that's what we're talking about here.
Mm,
I had many times before that considered what if I did lots of very dangerous things in my life. And so I was constantly thinking, what if one of these dangerous things goes wrong and I'm shot and killed? What if I sustain a spinal cord injury? All of these things. And so some people listening to this might go, man, that guy is a psychopath who thinks these things. It is that. No, I didn't think of them because I was afraid of them. I thought of them because they could happen and I don't want to be afraid of them. So I just wanted to be prepared for them.
yeah. I remember when I used to I'd be driving my car and I used to drive just with my left hand for a week and then I'd drive just with my right hand. And I'd constantly just keep rotating because I'm thinking, what happens if I lost an arm? What would I do? And I
It
was
does. People think that's crazy, but you're a happier person, have
I
knowing that
know.
you could do one or the other.
And then I was playing rugby league at the time and I dislocated my shoulder
There you
and
go.
did my shoulder and AC joint, popped it back in. AC joint was buggered. I had to get to the hospital and said, "Oh, it's all right. I can drive myself. I know how to do it." And I just drove
Oh,
with one
did you?
hand because I'd
Right.
prepared for that.
And you weren't crying or freaked out.
Oh, no, I was crying a little bit. Bloody hurt.
Well,
I had a couple of tears in my eyes, but I didn't.
but you didn't have to worry about your penis.
No, it was good. I hadn't actually
Yeah.
practiced peeing with the other hand, though. That would have been very handy.
I feel like it's fairly straightforward.
You'd think
So,
so.
yeah. But you
Try-
struggle. You struggle. I'm not here to judge.
no.
So,
So, anyway, women listening to this, you have no idea. It's not the same, both hands.
but I mean, I feel like the message speaks to everybody.
Yeah. Remember
More,
CIA Andy? when
Yeah.
he was at a Business
Our
Black Ops
buddy.
event. And he was talking, what did he refer to people? A lot about bobbleheads. He said, you see
Yeah.
them walking down the street and they're just looking at their phone. They're not really paying a lot of attention on what's going on around them. And
Hmm.
that's why they sometimes get themselves into danger or get in predicaments or get hit by cars.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's because they're just not paying attention.
Or they're not aware that their
Yeah.
spouse needs their attention or their kids do. This is a shocking and horrible thing, but people generally didn't pay enough attention before, but they're certainly, to your point, not paying any more attention to their environment, their relationships, their the important things in their lives. And that's why I'm saying the red team, blue team, purple team exercise, any of these things that you're teaching people to do, if they are actually in the small minority of people that both learn them and do them, they will be so rewarded for it. And by the way, in an environment like a business environment we're in now, where regulatory stuff is changing all the time, the laws are changing all the time, the demands and the expectation of the patient are changing all the time, what the effects of AI on practices are changing all the time, how we need to do things are changing all the time. Being agile and having resiliency and being creative and willing to change and cycling through these things and keeping an eye on it. Oh my God, that makes your practice invulnerable to these things that are going to crush everybody else's.
Yeah. And when you're talking about awareness too, of life and in general, and you'll hear people where a partner may leave and they go, oh, I didn't see it coming. There probably were signs there. You just weren't looking for them. But I've said to podiatrists that I do coaching with, whenever a team member resigns and leaves unexpectedly, after they leave, sit back and think about what were all the warning signs. And I'll guarantee there would have been warning signs. And the next time it happens, sit down and go, okay, what were the warning signs? You'll probably find they were the same. So therefore, when you've got your team there, you're now aware. When you start to see these things happen, you can go and talk to them beforehand and say, hey, I've noticed this. Are you thinking about leaving or do you have concerns? And sometimes if you can talk about it earlier, they won't
Yes.
leave because
Yes.
they might only be leaving because they haven't had a pay rise in 2 years and they're getting offered more money somewhere else.
And by the way, when we think about this, sometimes in hindsight, we're very happy that the person left because it now gives us
Yeah.
the ability to hire somebody that's a much better fit with the new team, the new way of thinking, the new environment we're working in. But to your point, there are sometimes you have a superstar and you don't want them to leave. And by raising that awareness, that's that awareness of the surroundings, situational awareness, self-awareness. These are high level mindsets that real performers cultivate.
On that note, Dave, this
Top of
has
the
been
hour.
absolutely fantastic. I think this has been great to, like we said, in episode 380, we went red team, blue team, purple team. We dug into that and what it was. But I think this episode has been great where I've had the opportunity to apply it, had
You've
other
seen it
people
in
using it,
action.
seen it in action. We'll be doing more of them. I've got more planned. But then reviewing it all again and having more practical information. This has been absolutely fantastic. So thank you very much for coming back on.
I love being here and I love having these conversations with you. They give me such clarity and great ideas. I really appreciate it.
No, it's fun. Okay, I will talk to you again very soon, Dave.
Be well.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Dave Fries on lessons and AI insights from the red, blue, and purple team strategy. What I love most about these chats with Dave is that it always challenges how we think, not just about business, but about creativity, resilience, and how to future-proof our practices, which is so important. Remember, the red, blue, and purple team approach isn't just an exercise, it's a way of thinking that helps your clinic prepare for whatever's next. Add AI to the mix, and you've got a very powerful tool for identifying blind spots and unlocking new opportunities. And if you haven't already, go back and listen to episode 380 for the first part of this conversation with Dave. You'll get even more insight into how these strategies can help you lead smarter and adapt faster. And if this episode made you think differently, as I said right at the start, consider sharing it with some podiatrists that you know who you think will benefit from it. And please consider leaving a quick review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever platform you happen to be listening to this episode on. And before I finish up, just a reminder, if you need help with your podiatry business or you just have some questions about your career, please go to my website, tysonfranklin.com, click on the coaching section. In there, you'll find there's an area where you can organize just a 30-minute chat with me to discuss whatever it is you want to talk about. I'm not here to try and get you. I'm just here to help. So go to my website, tysonfranklin.com. Okay, that's it for me this week. I want you to look after yourself, look after your family, and I will talk to you again next week. Bye for now.